I have an open-ended question that I want to start with. When I say to you guys, what does it mean to replace the function of banking in your life? What is your answer? What does that mean? And it's for some of you, maybe you can't answer that because you really haven't studied the process of what it means. Yeah, you've listened to a couple videos. Yeah, you may have watched a thing here or there, but you're not a student of this. You don't know what it really means to replace the function of banking in your life. And here's what I promise you. There's people on this do know what that means. And every one of them has a policy. Every one of them has a policy because they understand what that means. That there is a process to controlling the function of banking in your life and replacing the function of a bank in their life and financing in their life. But what does that even really mean, right? So let's read this and then flowing interest to the family. Absolutely not the bank. We're going to talk about that. I love that. Okay. We control the terms, not the bank. Yes. Okay. No interest to others, just benefiting me. Yes. Right? Cash flow. Yes. Awesome. So if there's anyone that doesn't understand how to explain it, well, maybe it's because you didn't read. You watched a few YouTube videos and said, I got it. It's awesome. But you're not a student of the process. Guys, when I made a choice to be a student of the process, is when my whole life opened up and changed, right? And I mean that. I mean that wholeheartedly. Okay. Um, in 2009, I got my first infinite banking policy with Mutual Trust Life. I had no idea what it meant. Like, I thought I did because I did read this book, right? I read it and I thought I got it. Not until I started practicing it and actually doing it did I understand really what it meant and the freedom and control of what that means. And man, I'm fired up this morning because I'm realizing that Nelson Nash talks about this in his book and just in his teachings as a whole. Like, get rid of the noise. Get rid of the noise and really understand what it means to become your own banker and your own banking system. Once you understand that, you're going to know exactly what you need to do. Elizabeth, you have your hand raised.
Yes. So I was just gonna comment how, like, even though I've only had my policy for what, like 5-ish years now,
About 5 years. I
like,
think you got it in 2020. Yeah.
yeah, like I've been through this whole situation all already. Like, the first time I used it was to pay off my car, which was great. And then the next time I took out money from my policy was to pay off my credit cards when I had lost my job and I obviously racked up credit cards. But what was also great about it is that during the time that I didn't have any employment, I didn't have to pay back on the loan. So it is great. And I didn't have to have all that interest that, would be killing me from the credit cards of not having the job. And then I also still get, you know, a couple dollars every day just from using it.
Yep.
So, and
So
that's
are
just
you
in five
saying,
years.
so are you saying, Elizabeth, that you were able to control the terms of the loan against the insurance company's policy of your policy, um, to be flexible so that you can control the function of that banking of that financing in your life?
Yeah. And what was
Is that what
great,
you're, is that, are you telling me you took a loan, but you didn't have to pay it back the next month because you had a troubling moment in your life?
it made something, that seems life altering only be a hiccup. So,
Yeah, awesome. Control, freedom, and flexibility, right? That is what this really means. If you're the bank owner, I want you to envision yourself. You're sitting in two seats. You're the bank owner. You own the bank. What are you wanting in a bank client? Well, you want someone reliable, right? You want someone that like has good cash flow so that money's flowing into your bank, right? You want someone that's gonna honor their obligations and not defunct on their loans, right? You want that. And whatever terms you set as the bank owner, you want the client to meet. Okay, you're sitting in that, you own the bank. Okay, now turn yourself around. You're also the bank client. What do you want as the bank client? Well, you want somebody as the bank owner to say, you know what? I want to give you some good return on your money. A decent, good cash flow. You put money in here, we'll give you 4 or 5%. Don't worry about the taxes. You're not gonna get it. Don't worry about it. But it's still gonna grow. And as a bank client, like if you were to take a loan from the bank, like man, I wish they could be really flexible with me. Like if I can't make my payment one month, I hope they don't repo my car, right? Man, if I'm the bank client, like holy cow, if I can pay a little bit one month and not the next month, but if I want to pay it all off, I can. There's no prepayment penalties, right? As a client of the bank, I want someone that is super flexible for me if I were to take a loan from them, but also pay me a good return on the money that I'm giving them. And you know what? It would be really cool is even if I took the money out of that bank, they still paid me on that money like I never touched it. That would be an awesome bank if I was a client. How cool is it? Oh, and if I need to change the terms of my loan as the client, I hope the bank owner will work with me. So how cool is it that you literally live on both sides of that equation? You control it all. And if you can, one of the best sayings I ever heard from a mentor of mine, if you can control the game to win, if you could set it up from the very beginning to win, would you ever stop playing that game? No, you just keep winning, right? That's what it means to control the function of banking. It will create more freedom and flexibility and control and flow that you'll ever need. You could start with very little if you need to, because you add another one, or you add another one. I have three. I, I started with a small one, then got another one, then I got another one. Okay, then my wife has one, right? I bring that up because so many times we think I can't afford it. I don't grasp that. Means I'm thinking of this life insurance policy as an expense because it's something that's got to come out of my pocket or come out of my checking account and go into this premium and go into this premium and go into this premium. Man, that's money flowing away from me. No, no. Like if designed properly for what your needs are, like please understand, a lot of it almost immediately is liquid if you need it. Like you could take a loan against it, right? And pay it towards your car loan or whatever you like it's about the flow and the movement of that money. Where those dollars are flowing, even if you are going to use those dollars even immediately. And it's about replacing that process. Now, if you don't fully grasp that, you're going to be thinking, well, yeah, but what about the interest rate on the loan versus, the loan against the insurance company and da 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 da. You're not getting it yet. Your money is flowing away from you right now. You will never see it again. You're paying your expenses, you're paying your loans, you're paying your future things you got to pay. All this money is flowing away. It's gone. Gosh, you got to go back to work to make more to replace it. If you store your dollars, and I'm going to say store in your policy, even before using it for other things, that one stop makes all the difference in the world. And you got to really understand why. You store money in your policy immediately. I'm talking that second, your death benefits just went up. It's a contractual relationship. It has to. Not it may. No, no. It has to. And when your death benefit goes up, immediately, because of the contractual relationship between death benefit and cash value, it has to go up. Not may, it may be. No, no, it will. So if your money's in here, death benefit goes up, cash value goes up. Oh, Brian, are you saying that I could actually take that money again and use it for something else if I wanted to? Yeah, about 10 to 15 days later, it is yours. Okay? Now there is a base policy and some of it's the cost of insurance. Like I know that. But when you really understand what it means to store dollars in there, and then if you need to use it again, go ahead. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? I get it. I get it, Brian. And you're going to design a policy for yourself and your family and others to flow as much money as you can through that thing without being stupid, okay? And use our advice and let's think through that. But like when you get it, you get it. But the problem is we get in our own way because we overthink it and we don't fully grasp what it means. But when you do, you're going to realize that, oh my gosh, yeah, everyone needs to understand what it really means to become their own bank. Stop flowing the money away from you and flow it towards yourself so that you can ultimately like eliminate interest, get out of debt, but build wealth with the same dollars that are normally flowing through your economy, paying your expenses. Like a great thing to think about is so if the money that I'm using, already using, flowing through my economy could also build me wealth and a legacy, not either or. This is why the and asset brick was created. He talks about it immensely that it should never be an either or decision with where your money is flowing. Should I pay my debt or should I invest? Should I put my money in this over here or should I put my money in that over there? Should I save more in my savings account or should I put it in my 401k? It should never be an either or conversation. Because if you have the and asset, which is a dividend paying whole life insurance contract from a mutual carrier, if you have that and asset replacing the function of banking and financing in your life, the dollars stop in the policy first, your and asset, and then, see, not or, and then utilizing it to do other things with it, whatever you want. And when you understand that, you and your clients are absolutely going to want to develop a stopping point for their money. They're going to be like, well, Brian, why do I even have a savings account anymore? Ding, 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 ding. You got a winner, Johnny. But Brian, I really need to be liquid. Yeah, I get it. The policy's liquid. Not as liquid as a savings account. It takes a couple days. Okay? I get that. So what? Okay, keep $500 in your savings account. Go ahead. The rest of the money should flow into your policy first before using it for other things. I hope that resonates. It's where your money stops before using it for other things. Because the moment it stops there, I'm repeating myself, I know your legacy just became bigger. I mean, literally that moment. If your legacy becomes bigger, contractually, the cash value has to become bigger. So here's what I mean by that. So many people don't understand this. They think the death benefit and the cash value are kind of not related. No, they're directly related. Pure contractual definition. The cash value that's building in your policy, hear me on this and understand this, is a contractual relationship between you as the policy owner and the insurance company. The insurance company says, okay, your death benefit right now went from 400 to 409, right? Because it went up 9,000, he said, right? So it went from 400,000 death benefit to 409 immediately. Boom. The cash value, contractually speaking now, is an advance that's available to you of the future death benefit that you're going to get. You see, you have to understand the life insurance company is on the hook for that death benefit. Like they've already agreed that your paid up additions will create more life insurance. They've already agreed that you can use the policy dividends to create more paid up additions to create more life insurance. Like there's nothing that can be done there. It's already agreed upon. So if the death benefit's rising, what the cash value definition really is they're letting you have access to an advance, if you want it, of the death benefit that's going to happen. And this is the amount that they'll let you have, which is whatever the cash value is at that moment, right? And you can take a loan against it. They're giving you access to it early if you so choose to want it, to take a loan against the policy. You have that right. Okay. And so because they're gonna pay the death benefit, they know that that's what the advance is against it's technically against the cash value that's in there, but the death benefit will cover it, obviously, if you never paid it back, which you have the right not to pay it back if you don't want to. You should, and if you know what it means to become your own banker, you will. But how cool of the freedom and flexibility to know that, you know what, if you have a bad month, a bad quarter, a bad year, you don't have to pay the loan back in that moment if you can't. Now you should, again, but the freedom of not having to is really powerful. So I hope that helps.